News Radio 840 WHAS. Good morning. This is Bob Sokoler and the Louisville Real Estate Show. And coming up on today's show, how to appeal your property tax increases. Plus, your questions, including mortgage problems for one of our listeners. What happens if your appraisal on your new home you're purchasing comes in lower than your purchase price? Also, what do you do if you're divorced but your ex-wife is still on the deed? Also, Airbnbs may become a thing of the past. We'll tell you why. And should you blur your house on Google Maps ASAP? We've got a packed show, as you can tell. Joining us for the show, Randy Rocky, who is one of the head guys at Swan Financial. You can reach Randy anytime on their phone at 645-0736. Also, Chuck Crosby. He's the head guy over at the Crosby Law Offices. They do a great job of closings. And then also wills and powers of attorney, commissioner cells. There's a long list, and Chuck does it all. He really is a jack of all trades when it comes to law. You can reach him directly on his company phone, 499-6360. And if you are thinking about selling your home this year or next year or years beyond, I would love to be able to help you. All you need to do is give me a call on my cell phone. Come out free. No obligation. We'll talk about what the process is and what your home is worth, which is really the important thing I know. You can reach me anytime on my cell phone, 376-5483, or you can go to bobsellslouisville.com. Click on the link after you fill out the information, and it will come to me, and I'll get right back to you. Well, gentlemen, okay, let us start out with the big thing that everyone's talking about in Jefferson County who have been reassessed for appraisals with their price of their home. The new property assessments are out. Jefferson County, many homeowners, and there are a lot of people. Chuck, you and I have talked about this. I think, Randy, you as well. A lot of people are not happy about their raised taxes, right?
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Well,
Yeah.
nobody's ever happy about that.
No, they are not. But this week I talked to PVAs, that's Property Value Administration, where we pay our taxes to in Jefferson County. Colleen Younger, she's the head person over there. And I asked her about why these tax increases were needed.
We derive our values directly from the market. So it's been a fast market with the absorption rate being so low and not being enough properties on the market. We've got those, there's still the bidding stuff going on. And so all of those things have contributed to rising property values over the last, I'd say last 10 years.
Colleen says you have until tomorrow at 4 p.m. That's tomorrow at 4 p.m. to appeal the process of increases to your home.
We have a user-friendly online tool at jeffersonpva.ky.gov. Go right online, 24/7. It's available, and you can also go. We have staff out at 3 different libraries. We're at the J-Town Library, St. Matthews, and the Mid-City Mall Highlands Library. Our staff will be on hand to assist people to walk them through. We've had a very heavy appeal season, and we encourage people to get in there before the expiration of that window. In order to be successful, we would like for you to give us interior photos because we don't get inside the home. Mm-hmm. So it's incumbent on the property owner to prove to us why your value is lower than what we say it is.
Now, I know she went fast. Where she said to appeal online immediately is www.jeffersonpva.ky.gov. Again, www.jeffersonpva.ky.gov. And no matter whether you do it online or you go in person to a library, the location that she mentioned, bring pictures of your home showing why it's not as up to date as neighbors may be. All right, we move on. You ready, folks? Jimmy writes in, this is for Chuck Crosby, divorced 5 years, thought his ex-wife was off the deed, went to sell his home, and PVA again, shows his ex-wife still on the deed. He's wondering what is up. Chuck, what happened? What went wrong for Jimmy?
Well, a couple things jump to mind here. First off, if it's on PVA and it's showing that, PVA is generally up to date. The problem is PVA is not the authoritative place to go to find out who owns what. What you do is you go to the county clerk's office. Now, a lot of people don't know how to navigate through the county clerk's office. I do. Give me a call. I can do that. What I would do is look up a copy of the deed, see if there's been any deeds recorded that maybe PVA missed. But the county clerk is the authoritative place to determine whether or not spouse is on the deed, ex-spouse is on the deed. With that said, If the ex-spouse is on the deed still, well, you want to check the property settlement agreement, see if they were supposed to come off the deed.
Mm.
And then if they were supposed to come off the deed, then a quick call to your divorce attorney and say, hey, do you happen to have a quitclaim deed in your file somewhere that never got recorded? That's, I know, probably already been done, but I always like to go back and just check the basics, make sure that the appliance is plugged in before you declare it doesn't work. Well, let's say that it does, it is plugged in. With that being the case, then you have to get with the spouse and you have to do a quitclaim deed. Now, most times that I run into this, the spouse is usually a little apprehensive, but you show them the paperwork, you all agreed to do a certain thing, they will usually sign. In the rare instances where they won't, then you have to go back to your divorce attorney and make a motion in court. Compel them to do it. Worst case scenario, and I've seen this happen a couple of times, spouse refuses to do it. Well, then you can get the judge, after they order her, do this. If she doesn't do it at that point, they go to the commissioner, and then the commissioner will sign on their behalf. It's a little bit of a drawn out process, and the longer you wait, the worse it is. But most of the time, these things work out just fine. Sometimes it's a little rough, and then again, now and then you have the interesting situations.
Gotcha. All right, Jimmy, hopefully that answers the question for you. By the way, if you hear something that you want more information on or want to listen to the show again, we make this easy for you. Go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That is a redirect to our YouTube channel where this video will reside. LouisvilleAnswers.com. And if you're watching LouisvilleAnswers.com, because it is video, you'll notice I'm not in the office studio this week. I'm over at my fiance's house. We're preparing to put that on the market, and because we found a place for her mom. So that's all good news. I'll be working on that the rest of this weekend. All right, back to the questions over there to Randy Rocky. Jesse has a mortgage with a company called Lakeview, not Swan Financial, Lakeview. He says they were subject to a wide-scale hack back in November of last year, which kept them offline for a number of months. He says they resumed operations, but they're still having problems. He says they have not pulled his mortgage payment out of the bank for 3 months. And he's wondering, are there any proactive steps that he should take or any of us should take to prevent problems down the road? It's really a good question. Randy.
Great question. I would be very shocked if they would report it late to the credit bureau. And I think Chuck will elaborate on this, that if they do, Wells Fargo, there were banks that were caught putting things on credit reports they shouldn't have, and there were some major lawsuits over it. So I would think that they're okay as long as they're still sending in their check, and eventually they will be caught up, but they will not report it to the credit bureau that it's 30 days late. And as long as that happens, and then they report they are making a monthly payment, then everything should be just fine.
Okay, good. A quick reminder, if you want to hear, because we love our reviews and we love the folks that we work with, if you want to see what people are writing about us, go to LouisvilleZillow.com or LouisvilleGoogle.com. That's where our reviews reside in writing. All right, Chuck, back over to you. We're hearing a lot about bed and breakfasts. They're being ostracized in some towns. And last week, I met with a couple in person who had renovated a home, wanted to list it as a bed and breakfast, but was then told by the city that this home resides in that no, that's not allowed. You need to do a long-term rental, 30 days or more. So they're wondering in this case, are there any options to fight the city or those powers that be? And then we'll talk a little bit about why bed and breakfasts are going away. Chuck?
Well, yeah, there are always options. You can always follow the administrative process. You have to, what they say in the laws, you have to exhaust the administrative process. So go through all the steps, push them, appeal it, push them, appeal it. Once they've said no, absolutely not, final answer, then you can go to court. That's where these things are resolved. Now, just because it's an ordinance, does that make it, constitutional? Does it make it equitable? Maybe not. That's why once you've exhausted that administrative process, then you can pull them into circuit court and see what the courts have to say about the issue.
So you think it's worthwhile doing this, Chuck? It's one thing saying it. Is it worthwhile? Will
Yeah,
they
I
win?
know, I know. Well, there's how much does it cost? It's always going to be a cost benefit analysis, right?
Mhm.
Are you going to win? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It depends on this particular case. It depends on a lot of different things. Are you willing to push it through? Well, that's how it always is. A law is made. Some people think it's not fair, it's not right. You go to court and find out. It doesn't happen immediately because a lot of times it is way more expensive.
Mhm.
Clearly, the city has a better leverage on the situation, but it's an option.
Yeah, it is an option. We wish you luck on that. Hopefully, his clients figure out a path, and because
Yeah.
they put a lot of money into this house. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more of your questions, plus why you should blur your house on Google Maps immediately. I don't know, Brandy or Chuck, if you checked it yet, but we'll talk a little bit
No.
about that, and we'll tell you why. Continuing with us, Randy Rocky, Swan Financial. He's one of the head guys over there. They do a great job getting you pre-approved for a mortgage. He's doing one for me. I'm thrilled the way the system works, all online, very easy. And you can reach the folks over at Swan Financial, 645-0736. And then when you're ready to close, get your loan closed, Chuck Crosby, Crosby Law Office, phenomenal guy, does a great job. You can reach Chuck not only for closings, but for wills, which are so important, and also a variety of other things, including a commissioner's sale, power of attorney, a variety of other things that Chuck does. You can reach him anytime, 499-6360. And if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the future, please do not hesitate. Give me a call. I'll come out, talk in person, as much time as you need, free, no obligation analysis of what your home is worth and what the path to selling it is all about. You can reach me anytime at 376-5483 or go to bobsellslouisville.com. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you till the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Barbara Corcoran, who is a friend, colleague, and we love her on Shark Tank, and she's there for at least another year. I think I just read where she just re-signed another contract for a year. Continuing with us, Chuck Crosby. He is the owner of the Crosby Law Offices. That's his name on the door. And they do a great job at real estate closings, wills, and a variety of other things. You can reach Chuck, 499-6360. Also continuing with us, Randy Rocky. He's one of the head guys over at Swan Financial. They do a great job getting you pre-approved and to the closing table. And you can reach Swan at 645-0736. And if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the future, I would love to come out, talk to you about the process. We can talk about what it looks like, what needs to be done or not done, and then what the house is worth, which is really important. I do it on my laptop, so you're seeing exactly what comparables are in your area. You can reach me at 376-LIVE or go to bobsellslouisville.com. All right, blurring your homes. Randy, Chuck hasn't done it. I just tested it before the show. It's important if you want to. It can shield your household from prying eyes of stalkers and would-be criminals. Luckily, Google makes blurring it out very easy on a street view. So what you want to do is go to Google, type in your address, look for your home. You'll see a street view. And I tried this. You click on, and this is tricky to find this. You click on report a problem, lower right-hand side of the screen. So go to Google, type in your address, lower bottom, right-hand side, click on report a problem, select what you want to blur, which in this case will be a house. And then it's going to ask you, once you select blur your house, there'll be several other questions. You'll fill it out, submit the request, and then check your email. And then you should be able to get that blurred fairly quickly. So it's a security issue, folks. And I'm planning on doing it on my new house, but not the house I'm going to be selling because I want people to see it, obviously. So if you're thinking of selling your homes, right, you don't want to do that in the near future because you want the house to be as visible as possible. All right, back to the questions that we're getting from our listeners. David sent us an email. He's a first-time home buyer, Randy Rocky at Swan Financial. He says, the appraisal on the house he is buying came in less than the sales price. So he's wondering, what are his options at this point? Randy, what would you suggest at this point?
Let's just assume it was $5,000 less. So either the seller can drop $5,000 on the purchase price and everything is the same, or like it was before, or the buyer, which is him, can bring $5,000 extra to the closing table, or they can do something in between where they split it. They can also protest, so to speak, or try to get the values changed, is the way I should say, and show comps that will take it up $5,000. That doesn't usually work. Very rarely does that seem to work when you try to do the comp scenario. So one of basically three options is what usually happens in that scenario.
Yes, appealing to an appraiser, not so
Yes, thank you.
successful these days. Yeah, right. Not so successful.
No,
And-
it's not.
and-
I can't remember a case where it actually worked.
No, I've never had a case work, never. And we've appealed probably 15 or 20 times. Maybe I've wanted to leave that word out of my brain because every time we did it, it didn't work, and we spent a lot of time on it. So yes, it's I think it's either option A or B usually is what happens.
I've got a C option. You ready?
Okay.
All right. So, David, here's what you want to do. If you really want the house and you want to roll the dice, here's what I would do. I would first get the approval of the seller that you're going to switch loan companies. And it's going to cost you a little more money, an appraisal price again, and loan app fee. But you go to the new mortgage company and you do the whole thing over again. And then they're not going to be able to pick their appraiser. They have to go through a clearinghouse, but the chances are good it will be a different appraiser. Now that's good unless it's an FHA. And correct me if I'm wrong, VA doesn't apply, but FHA does, right? You're shaking your head. I'm right on that.
Just FHA. Yes, conventional. You can't get a new appraisal.
Right.
VA,
You can get it from a new
yes.
mortgage company and for VA, but
That is correct.
with FHA, it's that appraisal is going to stick with the original appraisal. Is it 4 months or 6 months? Where are we on
6
that?
months.
6 months.
6
Okay.
months. Yes.
So that would be the path if you're really dead set. And I had a client about 3 years ago who was dead set. He wanted this house because the value could be incredible if they fixed up this upstairs room. And so he did pull out, and he did, in fact, get another appraisal that did find the value. So it's an opinion-based thing. Yeah, go ahead.
That's a great point. And also with us being a broker, we can take it to 49 other underwriters. We already have all your information. So very well said, Bob. And I should have obviously have option C.
No, that's okay. We would go with C. We'll give out Randy's number again. Another good reason to go with Swan, because they do have multiple lenders that they can shop your loan to get you the best rate. Back over to Chuck Crosby at the Crosby Law Office. So Paul says he purchased a house, and this is going to sound a little familiar, in 2017 with his now ex-wife. Since the divorce, he says in this email that we received that she has removed his name from the deed. But here's the rub. And Randy, you may want to jump in on this as well. Paul says he's still listed as co-signer on the loan. He said he's wondering what does he need to get his name off of the loan. So this is a sticky wicket, to say the least. Paul, yep, go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, so he came off the deed, but he didn't come off the loan, is what I'm hearing. And that's there's a lot of times I get that question. Hey, my ex-wife is still on. Usually the whole scenario where spouse coming off or ex-spouse coming off the deed, it's usually coupled with a refinancing of the house. If they can't refinance the house, well, coming off the deed isn't a good idea, because if you actually did co-sign or are a co-signer on that note, you will retain 100% of the liability for the loan and 0% ownership. And that's not a situation you want to find yourself in. The only way to come off of that is to get the mortgage company to say, okay, but I don't know of any lenders that say okay unless you refinance it.
Right.
I imagine some small banks might, small town, really small banks, maybe a hard money lender, possibly. But as a general rule, I would say you have a slim to none chance, and Slim is on his deathbed.
Yeah. I've had several divorce situations where they just couldn't get the financing for credit score or income, and it's really a tough, difficult situation, especially if there's kids involved. They want the kids to stay there. Oh man, because then you're part of the debt to income ratio unless they have so many payments and they're trying to buy a new house and they got to be able to do it on their own. It's a mess. It is.
Typically, the property settlement agreements are conditioned on refinancing and coming off the deed. But anyhow.
But the problem with that, Chuck, and this, is then they say, oh, I just want to get divorced. They're in the process of doing the refinancing, and then that goes to the wayside. And
So, folks, the takeaway, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, the takeaway from this conversation and this question is if you are going to go through a divorce, and hopefully you're not, but you don't want to have the deed put into the other spouse's name until you are off the mortgage, or it should be coinciding with both. Otherwise,
Right.
you're on the hook.
And one thing to clarify there, if I were to borrow money on a house and my spouse isn't part of the loan and you know, they will go on the mortgage, their name will appear on the mortgage, but they aren't on the note. The part of the process that borrows the money is the note. If your name is on the note, you retain 100% liability for the debt. If you're only on the mortgage, well, that's a whole other ball of wax. So the thing you need to come up with is who signed the note.
That's the instrument that we need
Yeah,
to be
that's what you need to
cognizant
look
of.
at, not the mortgage, the note.
A reminder, if you want to see a replay of this show, because this is visual as well, you can go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's where we reside on YouTube. It's our channel there, LouisvilleAnswers.com. And if you want to read more about our reviews, LouisvilleZillow.com or LouisvilleGoogle.com. Okay, back over to Randy Rocky, Swan Financial. Gary sent us an email. He's wondering if anybody has ever heard about mortgage modification scams. We've got this a couple of times. I suspect something's going on. A friend of his tried to modify her mortgage, turned out to be a scam. He's wondering how he and others avoid getting in the middle of all that. Is there something, Randy, or maybe Chuck, you can advise in terms of loan modification scams? Gentlemen?
Um, I, you always should call the actual company that you're making the payment to. In other words, if you get something in the mail and they say they're the company, do not call that phone number. Go to a website, triple check, and make sure you're calling the right company if you're looking for a modification. And in most situations, modifications are very difficult and they're not good for you. COVID, Bob, we talked about that several times during COVID. They were telling them to do modifications, and I kept telling you, please, consumers, if you can pay your bill, please do it. And it's been a disaster. It really has. So when they had the modification scenario going on, so if you can avoid that, number one, but then number two, obviously make sure you check the number 2 or 3 times before you decide to call them, because that's what they do. They get you to call, and then you start sending money to the wrong person. They wire the money, and then you're done. It's off to Costa Rica or wherever, and it's game over.
And am I correct in saying that the modification can only be done by your actual loan servicer, not
That
by a
is correct.
secondary, right? Yeah. So
Right.
if they're calling you scam wise, and the scams are out there everywhere. A personal,
Unbelievable.
personal note on scams. Get a load of this. So for the honeymoon that we're preparing to go on, Jeannie, the fiance, doesn't have TSA approved. So I went online last week and wanted to sign on to TSA's website to set up an appointment for her to go down. We'd go down and have her fill out the paperwork to get TSA approved for flying. Well, I'm as smart as I hope the next guy, and yet I was taken by a company that claimed to be TSA and that they were setting up the appointment. Well, it turned out it was fraud. Luckily, the bank I bank with flagged it, didn't allow that charge to go through. And so we actually got the appointment through this company. So I guess they do that matter of factly, but then they didn't get charged my card. And so I paid for it separately with TSA, and I checked my card to make sure that I wasn't charged while I was there. So scams can happen to everybody, even those who are fairly literate when it comes to the computers and technology. All right. We go back over to Chuck Crosby. Lester has lived in his home with his girlfriend 6 years, Pamela, and they have 3 kids, and they're splitting up. And Lester's name is on the house, and he's wondering, this is a little bit different. We have a lot of these today, I guess, seems like. He's wondering, Chuck, if they sell, do they have to split the proceeds? So again, Lester's name only on the house. I suspect the mortgage as well. Proceeds, do they get split, Chuck?
Only if they choose to. Only if they choose to. If I see a deed, it's in one person's name. That's the person that gets the check. Now, the thing about being married is, well, you've got a judge that can say, hey, this is how we're splitting things up.
Mhm.
Okay. When you're not married, there's no judge going to say, hey, split the funds up this way. It's just, you know, uh,
Yes. And the last thing
big,
you want is
big
the
loophole.
the last thing you want is the closing attorney asking the closing attorney to split those funds because
Yeah.
Chuck, you can't, right?
Oh, yeah. And, I'll get people occasionally saying, oh, hey, look, here's a property settlement agreement. Here's the formula it says to follow to come up with this number that we need to split. It's like, I'm not going to figure out what that number is. If the parties want to figure it out and they want to tell me how to split the money up, well, I'll be happy to. But I'm not going to interpret a court's order and step in the place of somebody's divorce attorney or something like that. It's just not going to happen. And if they're not married, well, I'm got my hands tied. It goes to the owner. If they choose to split it, well, that's fine. I'm happy to help. But I can't tell you this is how you should split your money up.
Yeah, I would suggest maybe folks, and Chuck, help me out here as we finish up this show, that if you're going to cohabitate in a home where you're splitting expenses, splitting paying the mortgage, that there's something written in advance, right?
Something written, whether it's entirely enforceable is a whole other ball of wax, but at least it gives some idea what the agreement is between the parties. There's also problems on the other side. Boyfriend, girlfriend, I've seen this happen, ladies buying the house with 100% of her money, but oh, hey, this is my boyfriend. We've been together forever. We're going to be together forever. Let's put him on the deed.
Mm-hmm.
Then they break up. Well, now he owns half the house.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Good.
I've seen that happen altogether too many times.
And on that happy note, listen, we hope, listen, as I'm about to get married, I really do hope. I want this marriage for me the rest of my life because I love this woman. But others may not be so lucky, or they could be in the middle of a variety of things. So you got to go in with your eyes open. I will again thank for being here Chuck Crosby, the Crosby Law Offices. They do a great job at real estate closings, wills, powers of attorney, foreclosure defense, commissioner sales. You can reach Chuck at 499-6360. Also, Randy Rocky, phenomenal job getting you pre-approved and to the closing table. You can reach Randy at Swan Financial at 645-0736. And if you're thinking of selling, I would love, love, love to help you with the process of getting you pre-approved, getting you on the market, getting you to the closing table every step of the way and finding out what your home is worth. You can call me anytime on my cell phone, 376-5483, or go to bobsellslouisville.com. Next week, are we in for a rough mosquito season? I think so. We'll hear more about that. And then we found out what actually attracts bed bugs to your home. That's coming up on next week's show. We're out of time. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.